So, good morning once again, and welcome to the online learning platform at Department of Civil Engineering. So, my dear friends, today we are back to the second class for Municipal Wastewater Engineering. If you recollect, these are the course outcomes. This is what we expect from you to learn by the end of this course. Now, yesterday, that was the first class of this subject. We had discussed about water supply scheme. So if you recollect, we had discussed the importance of each unit operation and unit process involved in a water supply scheme. If you remember, we had discussed this in the form of preliminary treatment, primary treatment, secondary treatment, and tertiary treatment. Now, today's class, we shall be discussing about sewerage system. And the presentation today will be dealt in the following manner. First, I'll, let you know about certain basic terms, certain basic words which are used in the concept of sewerage engineering. Then I'll explain to you what is the need for having a sewerage system and what is the basic characteristic of a sanitary sewage. All right, what are the different systems when it comes to your sewerage system? That is, conservancy, water carriage, okay, and so forth. Finally, towards the end of this presentation, I'll be summarizing and listing the references for your kind perusal. Now, if you remember, when we had spoken about water supply scheme, the first class, we had spoken about different types of water, okay? Fresh water, brackish water, potable water, palatable water, pure water. Now, in the same context, when it comes to your sanitary engineering, we have sullage and sewage, gray water and black water. In simple words, any water which is coming out of a household, let's say your house, from any source except the lavatories, that is your toilets, your kitchen and dishwashers, except this, any wastewater which is being produced, okay, that is called as sullage or grey water. Any other wastewater which is generated from your household, basically your lavatories, toilets, dishwasher and kitchen, that is called as sewage or black water. The pipelines or the conduits which are used to transport this wastewater, they are called as sewers. This entire system, which encompasses the sewage and the sewer and the sewer appurtenances, this is called as sewerage. Okay. Now, not just wastewater, there are other types of waste also generated from a household, such as solid waste. So garbage basically refers to any combustible and non-combustible solid waste generated. Night soil is another term which is used for human excreta. Storm water, in other words, is the precipitation or the rainwater. Now, why should you provide a sewerage? What is the need for transporting the sewage in a safe manner? In simple words, the prime objective is to make sure that there is no unethical, improper disposal of sewage anywhere on the environment. It could be the land, it could be your fresh water, it could be marine environment. Okay, because in case if there is an improper disposal of the night soil or the sewage, it will lead to complications and implications such as epidemics, waterborne diseases, a nuisance of insects such as housefly, mosquitoes, and so forth. You will have a bad odor which is emanating from the neighborhood or your locality, and most importantly, it will be not aesthetic. Okay, now having a sewerage work gives you clarity on if there's an unsewered area, what is that you need to provide. Let us say you're talking about a small town or a village where you cannot have sewer lines, then you need to provide septic tanks. Now, the disposal of treated sewage is not just into your fresh water, not only into the river or your ocean, but they can also be disposed onto the land with dual objectives, either for farming or for disposal. So further in your course, we shall discuss that under the ambit of sewage farming and effluent irrigation. Now, Typically, what is the nature of your sanitary sewage? Please remember, the reason why I'm stressing upon the word sanitary sewage is because a sewage can also be industrial. The wastewater which is coming from your residential area is sanitary. The wastewater which is coming from your industries is the industrial sewage. Definitely, it is possible that the sewage coming from the industry may have, not may have, will have components of sanitary aspects as well. Because in any industry, there are people, there are human beings, right? Okay, in a similar manner, your sanitary sewage, which is coming from your households, municipalities, residential areas, may also have traces of toxic materials. Let's say a laboratory, okay, or let us say, you have release of oil and grease coming from certain establishments wherein you repair your automobiles. But mostly and specifically speaking, your sanitary sewage is basically a dilute mixture, okay, of the wastewater which is coming from different sources from a household. Now, what are these sources? As explained to you before, it can be your kitchen, okay, it can be your washrooms, it can be dishwashers, okay. Now, typically speaking, a fresh sanitary sewage is grayish in color, but as conditions go forward, they become septic and they become black in color. What does your sewage contain? The sanitary sewage basically contains organic and inorganic matter, that is carbon containing and non-carbon containing. Now, the impurities, what is there in your sewage, would be in a dissolved form, suspended form, settleable form, and colloidal form. Okay. Now, not just physical characteristics, chemical characteristics, but your sewage also has biological characteristics. That is, viruses, protozoans, bacteria, and now most importantly, they contain pathogens, that is, disease-causing organism. All right. Now, when it comes to systems of sewerage, there are two basic techniques. One is your conservancy system, and the other is your water carriage system. I will show you a simple animation which is about 8 minutes long, which will give you a brief idea of what I am going to delve further. So please look at the video.
Cities are one of mankind's greatest developments. Half the people on the planet now live in cities, that is, in urban areas. And it is expected to grow as two-thirds by the year 2050. This shows that people are driven to the higher living standards and social amenities that cities provide. But this results in the need for a better and well-planned habitation system to accommodate the overpopulation, especially the need for a good waste disposal system. Because since there is an increase in population, invariably there will be an increase in waste too. Especially in households, there are many possibilities for various wastes to be generated. Some of the wastes that are generated in a household are night soil, garbage, sullage, and stormwater. There are two methods employed for the disposal of waste, such as conservancy and water carriage systems. So, in this lesson, let us learn about these systems in detail. Conservancy system.
I want all of you to observe carefully at this animation. I'll be once again explaining the same thing after the video is over.
This is an old system in which various types of wastes, such as night soil, garbage, etc., are collected separately in vessels or deposited in pools or pits and then removed periodically at least once in 24 hours. The system is also known as the dry system. Now let's see the methods of collection of various types of wastes in the system. First, night soil. Night soil or human excreta in latrines or privies is collected separately in pans or pails and carried on heads of sweepers to a central place from where it is transported in bullock carts or motor vans to a place away from the town for its final disposal. Second, garbage. Garbage is a waste matter of both non-combustible as well as combustible types, and it is collected separately in dustbins and conveyed on hand carts or garbage vans once or twice a day. Last, sullage and stormwater. Sullage water and stormwater are collected and conveyed separately in closed or open gutters. Even though this system is economical, it is not recommendable due to various disadvantages, such as hygiene and sanitary aspects. Conservancy system is highly unhygienic and causes insanitary conditions. Transportation aspect. Transportation through streets in open carts is undesirable. Labor aspect. As the disposal is entirely dependent on labor, their absence will leave privies non-usable because of the foul smell. Building design aspect. They are to be located outside the house, that is, slightly away from the main building. Therefore, the compact design is not possible. Risk of epidemic. Due to improper or careless disposal of night soil, there are more chances of an outbreak or epidemic. Pollution problems. The liquid wastes may soak in the ground, thus contaminating the soil and groundwater. So, because of these disadvantages, it is recommendable to go for the water carriage system. In this system, the collection, conveyance, and disposal of various types of wastes are carried out with the help of water. Thus, water is used as the medium to convey the waste from its point of production to the point of its treatment or final disposal. In this system, specially designed water closets are used which are flushed with 5 to 10 liters of water after every use. The human excreta, kitchen, bath, wash basin wastes, etc. are led to suitably designed and maintained sewers. The sewers are the underground closed pipes which lead the sewerage collected to a suitable site where it is treated suitably and then is disposed of by irrigation or by dilution. It should be noted that the garbage is collected separately and conveyed in the same manner as in the case of a conservancy system. Its major disadvantages are the large initial installation cost and the requirement of a large quantity of water. However, this is the most efficient and hygienic system. So, let's discuss the overwhelming advantages of this system. Hygiene and sanitary aspects. The system is very hygienic as the wastes are conveyed through closed conduits. Epidemic aspect. There are no chances of an outbreak or epidemic because flies and other insects do not have direct contact to the sewage. Pollution aspect. As the liquid wastes are directly conveyed through the sewers, there are no chances of contamination of soil and groundwater. Compactness in design. Since there are no foul smells from this system, the latrines can be attached to any part of the house. Treatment aspect. The system permits the use of modern methods of treatment of the sewerage, so the treated water can be disposed safely. And the water carriage system is divided into 3 types: separate system, combined system, and partially separate system. In this, the separate system provides 2 separate systems of sewers, one for the conveyance of foul sewage only, and the other for the rainwater and other non-foul waters. The sewage from the first system is treated and then discharged to the natural stream, while the sewage from the second system is directly discharged without any treatment. Then, the combined system provides only one sewer to carry both the foul sewage as well as the rainwater. Here, the sewage and stormwater are carried to the sewage treatment plant before its final disposal. And in the partially separate system, only one set of underground sewers is laid. These sewers admit the foul sewage as well as the early washings by rain. As soon as the quantity of stormwater exceeds a certain limit, it is collected and conveyed in open drains to the natural streams. The foul sewage, however, continues to flow in the sewers. Conclusion. This brings us to the end of the lesson. From this, we infer that due to growing urbanization, generation of wastes also increases, especially in households. So it is essential to provide a proper waste disposal system. Summary. In this lesson, we have learned about Conservancy System. It is an old system in which various types of wastes are collected separately in vessels or deposited in pools or pits, and then removed periodically at least once in 24 hours. The various types of waste in the system are night soil, garbage, and sewage and stormwater. Its disadvantages in the aspects of hygiene and sanitary, transportation, labor, building design, risk of epidemic, and pollution problems. Then we learnt about water carriage system. In this system, the collection, conveyance, and disposal of various types of wastes are carried out with the help of water. Its various advantages in the aspects of hygiene and sanitary, epidemic, pollution, compactness in design, treatment, etc. And its types are separate system, combined system, and partially separate system.
So, my dear friends, that was a very good informative video which was taken from YouTube, which gave you a very good information with respect to what a conservancy system and what a water carriage system is with animation. Now, let me recap and give you enhanced information. So, basically, a conservancy system is a dry system. It is actually outdated. It is not practiced anymore, but probably in small towns and villages, this practice still continues. So what happens in the system? The different kind of waste, that is refuse, they are separated, they are collected in a separate manner, they are conveyed in a separate manner, they are disposed of in a separate manner. Okay, now for instance, whatever is a combustible portion, that is burned, whatever is a non-combustible portion, okay, and which cannot be biodegraded, they are used for filling low-lying areas. Okay, that is for further reclamation. And those which are combustible, sorry, those which are biodegradable, they eventually get composted to become manure. And as discussed, as shown to you, even the night soil is transported separately and the wastewater is also disposed separately. So what is the advantage that you're looking at? In terms of initial cost, it is very less. And the quantity of sewage you're talking about is extremely low. Okay, but what are the demerits? What are the disadvantages of a conservancy system? You require more land, and there are high probable chances that your groundwater can get contaminated. Obviously, it is not pleasing in aesthetic manner because you have foul smell, okay, and you have the nuisance of the flies, and these can lead to epidemics. And please understand, the dependency on human labor is more in the conservancy system. In case if these the sweepers are on strike, or if they're not working even for a single day, then it can lead to chaos. So that was your conservancy system. This information can be also seen in the flow chart which is on the screen for you. Okay, now let's move on to the second type, that is water carriage system. So as the video said, there are three types: combined, separate, partially separate. But what is basically the information with respect to this system? In this, all the kind of waste, okay, that is, we're talking about your human excreta, that is your night soil, okay, the waste which is coming out from your washrooms, your toilets, your kitchens, your dishwashers, all of these are being transported using water, which means huge quantity of water is being consumed. And the advantage of the system is it is better and properly designed. Okay, and the most important mandate is this wastewater which is being generated and being transported, it is of onto any natural environment unless it is properly treated. So unlike your conservancy system wherein the waste just in an open area, here the wastewater cannot be just in the system. So it has to go to a treatment plant, that is a wastewater treatment plant, and after treatment it must be disposed into the natural environment. Now please remember, if you look at the final characteristics, the wastewater, your sanitary sewage is eventually 99.9% water itself, clean water. It's only the 0.1% the solid waste. Okay, so what is the advantage? You don't have any nuisance with respect to flies, mosquitoes. Okay, the land requirement is very less. Okay, it is much hygienic and much improvised when compared to conservancy. But what are the disadvantages? You're talking about infrastructure. Obviously there is a high installation cost, high maintenance cost, and you are consuming huge quantities of water. Water is no more a renewable resource, it's a scarce commodity, and there are high probabilities that, if you have a flawed design during heavy rainfall or during monsoon, you end up treating huge quantity of sewage, and also probably you might have overflow of sewers. Now let's look at a very simple video, an animation to understand how to distinguish between combined system, separate system, and partially separate system. Let me replay this for you. The first system that you're seeing now is basically the separate system. Have a look once again. The sewage coming from your household is being transported. This is the separate system. There is separate pipelines, sewer lines for this. Now you're looking at combined system. Now basically what happens here is, it's not just the sewage, also your storm runoff is entering into the system. So you have one single conduit which is collecting both of these. I'll replay the second video. So let's recap. In the separate system, that is the first part of this video, you had only the sewage coming out, and that sewage was separately being transported to a treatment plant, and then it was being disposed into a natural environment. But the second part of this video was wherein both the sewage and the rainwater, that is storm runoff, okay, was being collected together and being treated and disposed. Okay, let's have a look once again. I would request you to observe very carefully. So here you saw that the sewage was only being transported. This is your separate system. Now let's look at the second part. Now what happens here is, along with the sewage, you have rainwater also entering the system. Now, let me try to explain this once again to you, the three different systems in the further slides. Okay. Combined sewerage system. Here, there is only one single set of pipelines or conduits or sewer lines. And this single sewer collects not just the sewage, but also your storm runoff. Okay, so what is the advantage? It's only a single pipeline you're talking about, so there is less construction cost. Okay, it's highly economical. Now, since you have storm runoff entering, there is no question of siltation or choking. And since you have storm runoff, which is more in quantity entering into your pipeline, the dilution effect takes place, which means the toxicity is reduced. And especially in crowded areas where you cannot lay multiple pipelines, this is the best suitable system. And yes, self-cleaning velocity, that is, even since there is water entering along with the sewage, it indulges or it recreates or it enhances the self-cleansing velocity. But what is the disadvantage of the system? Since you're talking only about one single pipeline, okay, you need to make sure that the diameter is quite huge. That is, the size of the sewers matters here. It will be much bigger than the other systems. Now, it is not just your sewage which is going to treatment plant. It is sewage plus rainwater which is going to treatment plant. It means that you have a greater load going to treatment plant. Okay, now yes, we have used storm water to enter the system. So what did you do? You basically polluted the storm water, which is actually not polluted in the first place. Okay, now in the event of a monsoon or a rainfall, okay, there are heavy chances of sewers overflowing. And please remember, in those kind of locations wherein there is sparse rainfall or very less rainfall, the system is not useful. Now let's look at separate system. Here you have got different set of sewer lines, different set of conduits. One set of a sewer line which will transport only the domestic sewage to the treatment plant, and after treatment it is disposed into a natural environment. The second set of pipeline, it could be an open conduit or a closed conduit. The function of that is to collect the rainwater, and that is also naturally disposed into a natural environment. Okay, so what is the advantage? You're not polluting the storm runoff. Okay, now the pipelines or the sewer lines obviously require lesser diameter. Since lesser quantity of wastewater is reaching the treatment plant, obviously the load is lesser. But what is the disadvantage? Since you have more number of pipelines or conduits or sewer lines, there is more construction cost. Obviously your installation cost, maintenance cost is very high. And since the sewer carries only the sewage, there are more chances of silting, choking, and the self-cleaning velocity is not achieved. And especially in crowded areas, old cities, towns and villages, you cannot afford to do that because you need to dig up the roads and lay multiple pipelines. And in the event of any damage or any crack, there are chances of mixing up of water and wastewater. Okay, now this is a small simple glimpse to compare a separate system and a combined system. This is what was conveyed to you in the animation and also in my interaction with you. Partially separate sewerage system, or also called as partially combined sewerage system. Now, this is a system which is very similar to the previous two systems because it combines the advantages of the previous systems. Okay, now in simple words, what happens here is only a certain portion of your storm water is allowed to enter the sewers. It is not the entire rainwater which enters the sewers. Only a small part of it enters it. And the objective of doing that is to achieve self-cleansing velocity, to achieve non-siltation, to achieve non-choking. Okay, so majority of the storm water eventually is transported in a separate open conduit or a closed conduit to the natural environment. Now, let's look at the advantages. Well, you compare with the previous systems, this is much more economical and your sewer sizes are neither too huge or too less. Now, this is definitely an improvement over the separate system. It overcomes all the disadvantages of separate system. Okay. Now, yes, the cost involved and the workmanship involved in plumbing is also reduced. Now, you don't need to do any flushing system here because you already have a small part of storm runoff entering. Okay. Now, since you have only less quantity of storm runoff entering. You're not polluting the entire quantity of the rainwater. But what are the disadvantages? There is possibility of overflow, okay, in case if your design is flawed, if there's a crack, if there's no proper maintenance, if there's encroachment of your sewer appurtenances such as manholes, okay, then there are possibilities of mixing taking place, okay. Now obviously, if you need to pump and if it is not efficient, then the cost of pumping will be a barrier, okay. Yes, your storm water is getting contaminated, not to an extent of combined system, but yes, to a certain percentage, okay. Now in the event of a summer, in the event of a dry weather, when there is no rainfall, your partially separate system is just going to function as a common or a simple separate sewerage system. So the disadvantage during a dry weather of a separate system will coexist for a partially separate system also. So my dear friends, I'm done with the presentation. Let's have a simple recap. Now, whatever was conveyed to you has been presented in this table. Okay. Now, with respect to the economy, with respect to maintenance, with respect to aesthetics, with respect to the operation. Okay. Now, what did we discuss in this presentation? We had spoken about how important sewerage system is. We spoke about the aspects, the merits and demerits of conservancy system, which is a dry system, the water carriage system, which again were of further types such as combined, separate, partially separate. And also we had discussed the favorable conditions, that decide what system to go ahead with. But please remember, the image what you're looking at on your screen is the Belendur Lake. Okay, irrespective of whatever system you have, if you do not do a proper design, if you do not understand the suitability aspects, no system will suffice. Okay, students, these are the references that have been followed. I would request you also to go through this for your kind perusal. In the next class, we shall be discussing about the design aspects of a sewerage system. Okay, this is Rajesh Gopinath. Thank you.